All right, let's step back in time. We're going to the Jazz Age for a true crime story that seriously has it all. You've got a beautiful defendant, a really shocking murder, and a media frenzy that basically turned a courtroom into a Broadway stage. Yep, this is the real story that inspired the musical Chicago.
I mean, that quote right there just sets a chilling scene, doesn't it? Because this isn't just a story about a crime. It's about the spectacle that grew up around it. And the whole thing kicks off with the sound of a record player.
So this is the one detail of the case that's just unforgettable. Picture it. On a spring afternoon, a man named Harry Kalstedt is lying on the floor, dying from a gunshot wound. And what's happening in the background? A popular jazz tune called Hula Loo is playing on a phonograph, over and over and over again, for hours. This one bizarre fact would become the heartbeat of a massive media sensation.
So, how on earth did this happen? Well, it was a perfect storm of ambition, secrets, and a city that was absolutely hungry for a good story. Let's meet the cast of characters. Okay, so first up, you've got Beulah Annan. She's a 23-year-old working in a laundry but dreaming of being a glamorous flapper. Then there's her husband, Albert, a steady, reliable railroad worker. And finally, Harry Kalstedt, Beulah's secret lover and, of course, the victim in this whole tragedy. Their lives were about to smash into each other in the most public way you can imagine. You have to understand, the city itself was a massive character in this story. 1920s Chicago was a total powder keg. This was the time of prohibition, speakeasies, a cultural revolution. And the newspapers? They weren't just reporting the news, they were crafting blockbuster narratives for a public that could not get enough of stories about sex, sin, and this new flapper woman. The stage was perfectly set. Almost immediately, the story of what actually happened starts to fall apart. The real mystery wasn't just about who pulled the trigger, it was about why. And the answer seemed to change every single time Beulah Annan opened her mouth.
So at first, her story was simple. It was self-defense. He threatened me, so I shot him. But then, the details start to shift. Suddenly, it's a story about jealousy, about a struggle for the gun. With every retelling, the line between who was the victim and who was the aggressor got blurrier and blurrier, all wrapped up in what looked like a very dramatic performance of grief.
And what about that jazz record, that endlessly playing record? Well, this was her explanation. As her lover lay dead or dying on the floor, she claimed she needed music to calm her nerves. It's an explanation so strange, so theatrical, that it just seemed grotesque to a lot of people. But you know what? It was also incredibly memorable, and the press absolutely latched onto it.
And this is the exact moment the case goes from being a local crime story to a national phenomenon. The focus completely shifts away from the evidence in that apartment and onto the image of the woman on trial. Justice was about to get shoved aside for public relations.
The media, especially a reporter named Maurine Watkins, saw the potential for a blockbuster. The trial became less about the facts and more about which story the jury was going to buy. Her defense team painted this picture of a tragic beauty, a good woman who was just led astray. The prosecution, on the other hand, pushed the idea of a cold, heartless manipulator. And the newspapers? They were covering her fashion choices as much as her testimony, turning the courtroom into a runway. And then the nicknames started, all designed to sell more papers. First, they branded her the Jazz Slayer, tying her forever to that unforgettable, bizarre detail of the phonograph. Then, the whole narrative shifted to her appearance. She became the prettiest murderess, making her looks a central part of her public identity. Which all boiled down to the one question that was on everyone's lips. Was she simply too pretty to hang? The public debate wasn't even about guilt or innocence anymore. The story had completely taken over the crime. And the narrative won. After a pretty short deliberation, the jury came back with its verdict. Beulah Annan, who had played the part of the tragic beauty to perfection, walked free. I guess she learned that with the right performance, you could get away with just about anything. So what happens after the trial's over and the cameras go away? Well, Beulah's real life took a very different turn from her brief, spectacular moment in the spotlight. But in a really strange twist, her story was actually just beginning. It was about to become immortal. The reality of Beulah's life after the trial? Honestly, it was pretty anticlimactic. Her fame was gone in a flash. She divorced the husband who stood by her through the whole thing and quickly faded from the public eye. Just 4 years after becoming the most famous woman in Chicago, she died quietly from tuberculosis. But this is her real legacy. That reporter, Maurine Watkins, the one who covered the trial, she was so cynical from the whole spectacle she witnessed that she wrote a satirical play about it. And in that play, Beulah Annan was reborn as Roxie Hart. The real-life manipulation and the desperate hunger for fame became the defining traits of an immortal fictional character.
So almost 100 years later, why are we still talking about this case? Well, it's because the themes it hit on, media, celebrity, justice, are more relevant today than they have ever been. That echo of that jazz record, it's still lingering. I mean, think about it. In the end, Harry Kalstedt, the actual victim, became a tiny footnote. Beulah Annan, the defendant, became a legend. This case is just a stark reminder of how easily the media can shape a story and how our own thirst for a good narrative can blur the line between a courtroom and a theater. And this leaves us with a question to really think about. When we consume true crime stories today, through podcasts, documentaries, social media, what are we really looking for? Are we actually searching for the facts, for the truth of what happened? Or are we, just like that jazz age public, still just captivated by the most compelling performance? The record may have stopped spinning a long time ago, but that question, it just keeps playing on a loop.